Hello, and welcome back to God and Girl Talk. I'm Kris, and I am so excited to have you here for another episode because today's topic is going to be about something that I am so passionate about now that I am on my walk with God, and it's something that I want to see replicated in this community, which is spiritual maturity. This is something that my disciple leader and I were talking about today, and it's because it's such a foundation and a pillar in my church is to make and lead and send disciples out that are on mission with Jesus, which is being fishers of men, preaching the gospel, teaching the gospel, being in community with one another, things that I didn't even think about before coming to my church, honestly. I was kind of lost, honestly, on my spiritual journey, my spiritual walk. So when God put this church in my path, I didn't even know how much I needed spiritual maturity to go along with my life, to develop me in ways that I didn't even think were possible. But it really does go to your psychological, your emotional, your behavioral maturity. It really touches every single facet. But so many of us forget about the spiritual aspect, thinking that that's not as important. Or we think being spiritually mature just means quoting a lot of Bible verses, going to church every Sunday. We are claiming we've been a Christian and we've been baptized for 20 plus years now. That is not spiritual maturity, is what I want to teach about today, because spiritual maturity goes so much deeper. Spiritual maturity is about the lessons you learn on your walk with God. It's about the rebukes and the persecution and how you handle things with Him now as a follower of Christ. Because God is going to teach you some lessons. Just because you're a Christian, you are going to be faced with challenges and persecution, probably more than the average person too. Because Jesus did not come to earth and sacrifice Himself for us to live an unhappy life. He did that so we could be fulfilled through Christ. However, He is also a model for what's going to happen to you by being a follower of Christ, okay? He was crucified on a cross. So yes, that's a very extreme version. However, as modern day Christians, if you think that you are not being judged, you're not being looked at, you are not being persecuted, you are not being talked about, you're not being questioned, no. You are not a true Christian. You're not really walking in your walk with God. And I see this, unfortunately, in the community of Christianity. And I've had to struggle with it myself, because coming into Christianity, I think a lot of people think it's going to be lollipops, rainbows, sunshine. God is love. Everything is going to be amazing and full of love. There will be no trials, no tribulations. Absolutely not. Absolutely not, because I was clueless. I thought, God was going to come in. He was going to be so kind and gentle, which He always is. However, He has rebuked me. He has taught me lessons. Every time I try to point the finger back to someone, He turns that mirror around and says, no, ma'am, this is you. This is a you problem. And I'm like, oh, God, okay, really? But anyway, the point being is that being on your walk with Christ is incredible. You will learn so much, but sometimes people get triggered and they don't want to learn the lessons that God and Jesus want to teach us. They get sensitive. And I'm just saying this because I see it in my community and I've seen it with myself so many times. No one likes to have that mirror turned back around on them. No one likes to be questioned. No one likes to have their walk with God be discussed and talked about and share things that are maybe slightly personal. But when you are with a good, safe community, these are the things that we have to do in order to develop ourselves and be spiritually mature with Christ, because Christ did not create us to operate alone. Okay, He created us to come in to this world strong, aligned as one body, growing together. And unfortunately, some Christians don't want to really do that. And that's kind of what we were talking about, is that when it comes to learning about God and Jesus, some Christians are all in. But when it comes to being rebuked and persecuted and questioned and taught lessons by God and having that mirror turned back around on you, a lot of Christians are like, I'm out. Like, I've seen it in my very short walk with Christ. And unfortunately, it's just something that needs to be discussed, especially on this channel, because we are all about inner work. We are all about our journey and our walk with God. And I want to make sure that we are now strong enough to come into our walk with God, asking for those blessings, being spiritually ready to receive everything that God has for us, and making sure that our cup isn't this big anymore. We want it to be out here. We want to hold. We want the capacity. We want all the things that God has promised us. But if you have a little tiny cup, you can't hold anything in it. And I know in the Bible it says our cup shall overfloweth. However, it can overflow with bad things too. It can overflow with anxiety and overwhelm, and you could just not have enough capacity to be able to receive all the goodness that God is trying to get to overflow in the cup. But if all you put in your cup is anxiety, overwhelm, negativity, no, it's not going to work. And unfortunately, you will not be able to grow spiritually with God, and you will continue to unfortunately operate as a weaker Christian on your walk with God. And it's going to be a difficult journey. And I don't want that for us. So I'm going to share some things that have helped me that I talked about with my spiritual leader to see if this is helpful for you guys. Because again, I have struggled with this my entire life. My cup, my capacity, even before coming to God, I didn't even know what this was. However, I knew that I struggled with self-sabotaging. So whenever I started walking with Christ, he quickly revealed this to me. And whenever I would feel like I was having like a spiritual level up, right? I'm like, oh God, we are walking together. I'm leading this. I'm doing this. I'm volunteering here. This is all going great. He'd be like, okay. And he would send me a test. And in that test, it would really determine if I was really centered and focused on him, or if it would determine if I was completely unfocused on him and there was some more work to do. There was some more spiritual residue that he had to clean up. And I'll give you an example of this and why I'm so passionate about making sure that you're ready to receive those blessings that God has for you, because he's ready to give them. However, if you are operating as a sensitive Christian, things are easily bothering you, triggering you, affecting you, people's opinions are getting to you, then unfortunately in your spiritual walk with God, you still got some work to do. Again, saying it from experience, because as you go throughout your spiritual journey, being strong and being tough are unfortunately part of it. Because if you're not, you're going to crumble. You're going to fall apart. And you won't be ready or be fit to be in the kingdom of God when it comes for you. So I'll give you an example again of when I was on like a spiritual high with God. And I was like, God, everything's going great. We couldn't be any closer. You're my father, my Yahweh, my protector, my everything. And he's like, okay. So some tests that he sends me, I pass with flying colors. Other tests, I fail miserably. And one of those tests that I did pass, I will say, because I used to be an aggressive driver. I'm in a big city. People are going to cut you off. However, this particular day, this man was not letting me over for anything. I really had to get over. There was honestly nowhere for us to go. He would not let one car over. He almost hit me. And I was like, this guy. And he pulls up alongside me and stares at me. The meanest stare I've ever seen. And I was like, I see what you're doing, God. And all I did was wave at him. And I waited. And then I got behind him because the other car let me behind. And then after I was able to make my turn, I made my turn. And I never saw him again. But I was proud of myself because in the past, it would have been so ugly. Y'all would have saw a side of me that I do not like to expose, unfortunately, because it's there. But God has done a work on me. And I was like, okay, no problem. However, a time where I did not pass is almost a year ago now, where me and my husband had gotten to an argument because he questioned my Christianity. And I proved him right when he was questioning it. Okay, I got upset. I yelled. I said mean things. And so did he. And I was like, how dare you question me? But I'm like, ooh, not really acting like a Christian here. Okay, so I'm saying that because my cup was this big. at one point, but God is slowly growing me. I'm not claiming to be the epitome of spiritual maturity. I am just saying that I have learned so much on my journey with God, and He has revealed so much to me. And every time I get to a new level, I have to check myself to make sure that I'm not self-sabotaging myself and going back down a level in my relationship and in my walk with God. Because unfortunately, there are things that we can do to grow, and there are things that we can do to regress. So don't think just because you feel like you're spiritually mature one day that you can't be knocked all the way back down to the bottom rung another day. But some things that I have done that I think are very helpful, or that at least help me in some capacity, stay grounded and expand my capacity to be able to receive the blessings that God has for me, because that's what I want for every single person watching on this channel. I had to realize that my challenges and my struggles are part of the growing process, and they should be rejoiced, because no, in the moment, nobody wants to rejoice about challenges and struggles, no matter what they are. However, the Bible calls us to do that, to know that the victory is already God's. He's already won it for us. And, God's proven track record since you're alive today means that He's won 100% of your battles. Okay, so He's going to get you through this battle, even though it may be really, really, really bad, but He's still going to get you through it. And if you keep your focus on Him, you will be able to see that and realize that there is nothing else that you need to do or worry about or fret about or have anxiety about or be depressed over, because unfortunately, this is part of the growing process, so He can expand your cup so that one day, after all of these challenges are over, and He gives you all the blessings that He has for you. I know it's hard to see right now. I know. But one day that cup will be bigger, and you're going to face something and you're going to say, oh, I've already dealt with something way worse than this. Thank you, God, for pulling me out of that. And we're going to rejoice now because He got us out of it, and He's going to get us through the next thing, because there's always going to be something coming down the pipeline. Okay? But another thing I want you to realize is that spiritual maturity, it takes time. It does. Just like you go to the gym and you try to get stronger, you don't lift 5 pounds and think tomorrow you're going to have a 6-pack or legs and quads of steel. It's not going to happen. It's going to take a while. You're going to have to eat healthy for a while in order for you to start seeing the external changes within your body that are going to be representative of somebody who's disciplined, somebody who's mature in their mental strength and their toughness and their resilience, and just they keep going even when things get hard, even when they have to lift more weights, even when they have to put more reps in at the gym and eat healthier. You will see that shown on that person's body, because now they have created discipline within their lives in order to see the results long term. Same thing goes for spiritual maturity, which nobody likes to admit. No, just because you go to church for the last 20 years does not mean you are spiritually mature. It could, but it doesn't just mean that. You have to build a relationship with God, and that takes time, because we don't know God. He knows us intimately, but we have to put in work in order to know God. And that's the only way we can become spiritually mature, understand the blessings that He has for us, be ready to receive them, understand that when something comes into our life, is this from God or is this from the devil? Okay, you have to be able to discern that. You only have this knowledge of God and His character by being in a relationship with Him, and that does take time for you to work with Him, to understand Him, to commune with Him, to sit with Him, to read and just be in His presence and have Him reveal things to you. That does take a lot of time. Like, I'm excited about my journey, but I'm like, God, what are we learning today? Because I feel like I've just learned something for the last 5 days and now I'm worn out. So I'm going to need a minute. And that's okay, because God's going to be there waiting. But just realize that in order for you to be able to receive those blessings and understand when He's actually sending a blessing and it's not coming from someone else, that's going to take time. Discernment and building that spiritual intelligence is going to take some time. And then the last thing I want you to remember, because I unfortunately do see this sometimes with Christians outside of my church, because again, we are a disciple making church, like we are all about community, and you feel it when you enter the building, and I love it. I'm not saying all churches are not like this. I'm just saying sometimes when I meet other people from other churches, they tell me that, they don't really like people and they don't like to be in community. And I'm thinking, how? How are you going to be a follower of Christ and not like people? That's hard. I know. I know. And if you're a person that doesn't like people, I'm sorry, but not really sorry. I need you to be better with people. I need you to be in community with spiritually mature people or people that are connected to Christ in some way, even if they're new believers. It doesn't matter because they still have things that they can teach you. They still have things that they can reveal to you that God can use them for, to reveal to you, to increase your spiritual walk and your spiritual maturity. And you have to do that with others. So what is it? Matthew 18, verse 20, for where 2 or 3 are gathered in my name, there I am. Yes, paraphrase, because there's so many different versions of that. But make sure that you are not discounting the relationships that you have with people, because these are all very important and they really can help your spiritual maturity on your spiritual walk with God. So take the relationships that you have seriously and increase your spiritual maturity, guys. So if there's a blessing that you are not receiving in your life, I want you to ask yourself, where am I not releasing control to God for him to grow me and expand my cup? That way I can overflow with all the good things that God has for me. Okay, I want you to please leave me a comment. If you have any questions, please let me know. Spiritual maturity is so important for each one of us to have. So please let me know what I can do to help you along your journey. All right, until next time, bye.